We're going to talk about the PAR today. We got some guidance from our federal entity, and so we're going to change the PAR effective July 1st, 8 days ago. So we're going to go back in time a little bit, and we tried to get this scheduled as soon as we could so that you would have your information sooner rather than later for doing your PAR. So we're going to talk about the who, what, when, where, why, and all you want to know about the PAR. So first of all, who has to fill out a PAR? Anyone that works on the contract is required to fill out a PAR, whether they're 100%, part-time, full-time, whether they work 1 hour or 10 hours. Anyone that works on the contract should fill out a PAR, and that PAR should reflect all of their actual time worked and paid time off, whether it's contract or non-contract time. What is the PAR and why are we changing it? The PAR is how you will be or have been tracking your contract and non-contract activities. We got additional guidance that now allows us to track required, coordinated, authorized, and non-PREETS activities. And we will be able to count the required, coordinated, and authorized towards our 15% requirement for our federal entity on PREETS activities. So that is why we're changing it. Before, your direct column was a combination of coordinated and authorized and direct activities, and now we're asking that you separate those out. Most of your time should be in the required column. That's where we would like you to spend most of your time working directly with those students. Then would be coordinated and authorized. And lastly, non-PREETS. The other column is for the staff that is not 100%. So if you work on other activities for your contract, for your contractor, for your employer, those would go under the other column. The right side of the PAR would be your paid time off or PTO, like vacation, sick leave. And we'll go through this again in a little bit when we talk more about the PAR. When do you fill out a PAR? Your PAR should be monthly or according to your pay periods. So if you're paid every 2 weeks, then your PAR should reflect a 2-week time frame. However, your PAR can include more than one pay period, so you could include 4 weeks on your PAR to indicate 2 pay periods. So those should match up to your pay periods and your pay stub and your payroll report that your financial person turns in with their claims. We would ask that you do 1 PAR for June and July if it crosses those timeframes, and September and October. We will prorate those according to what you work in June versus what you work in July, and they would be separated out and included on the June claim versus the July claim. Those are our state fiscal year ends and our federal fiscal year ends. So your financial person will most likely do that for you, or we will help with that when they turn in the claims. Where do you send the PAR? You would send your PAR to your financial person or the person that does the claims You do not need to send it to your IVRS accountant. Your gross pay to be allocated would go at the top of the PAR before it's sent to IVRS Financial. Why do we fill out a PAR? Again, it's for monitoring and reporting purposes. Our federal entity wants to know what kinds of things you guys are doing for us under the contracts. And we have a 15% requirement for providing pre-employment transition services. How do you fill out the PAR? We'll go through this in further detail, but you will put your hours worked in the columns that match the activities that you are doing. And we have a cheat sheet that you should already have or you will receive. And those show the required, coordinated, authorized, and non-PREETS type of activities and where they fall. However, your resource manager is your best resource in assisting you with determining where specific scenarios might go. So you're welcome to contact them if you have questions. Okay, so this is the cheat sheet that I was talking about. It goes through the different required activities. So there's job exploration counseling, which is, for instance, labor market information, information on career pathways, the career index. You have work-based learning experiences, which can be informational interviews, worksite tours, apprenticeships, on-the-job trainings in the community, counseling on opportunities, which includes types of academic and occupational training needed to succeed in the workplace, completing the FAFSA, information on military, workplace readiness training, which includes job seeking skills training, soft skills training, community safety. Then you have instruction in self-advocacy, which includes problem solving, self-awareness, knowing how to request assistance. Coordinated activities include attending IEP meetings, working with employers to develop work opportunities for students, such as internships, summer employment, paid or unpaid work experiences, working with school staff to coordinate PREETS activities, attending person-centered planning meetings for individuals receiving Social Security benefits. Authorized activities could include providing training to vocational rehabilitation counselors, school transition staff, and others supporting students with disabilities, develop model transition demonstration projects, disseminate information and strategies to improve the transition to post-secondary activities of members of traditionally unserved and underserved populations. Your non-PREETS activities will be case notes, case management, entering information into the IRIS interface, quarterly reports, and providing services to students who do not meet the definition of a student with a disability. Any questions so far? So this is the cheat sheet that we'll send out that will help you, or that has been sent out, that will help you determine where your activities go. You've always had the required activity column, but now your direct column is separated into the coordinated and authorized activities. So you'll have to start splitting those out for us. Your non-PREETS activity column is almost everything that you would have included in your indirect. Some of your direct may also fall into the non-PREETS activities now. Again, if you have questions, you can ask your resource manager. If you want to know where an activity falls, if you want to know how to do it on your PAR, how to account for that activity on your PAR, you can ask your financial staff as far as helping you fill out the PAR. So this is what the new PAR looks like. Some of you may recognize it because it is very similar to what the PAR used to look like before our last change. So you have your first 4 columns are your contract activities. The first 3 are your PREETS activities. You have your required, coordinated, authorized, and non-PREETS. You have your sick leave, vacation, holiday. So this is your paid time off. Your gross pay to be allocated will go up here in this field. And we ask that you not put any letters in these columns. You strictly put numbers because it will not catch those items down at the bottom for the formulas. You can change your headings on your columns. So for instance, if you have a snow day, you can change your column heading to include snow days, if that will help you in the long run as far as where to put those hours. If you're not 100% on the contract, you can also change your other column to what you need it to be. Say you work part-time as a special ed teacher, you can change that column to what you need to fit your needs. These first 4 columns should not be changed though. They're for the contract. So for instance, if you work 5 hours doing some required activity and you have 3 hours you work doing special ed activities, and let's say you get out an hour early for a snow day. it takes the PAR takes those hours and calculates based on your wonderful salary, because you're worth every penny, and splits those up according to your hours worked in each column. And this is what we use for tracking and what we use to determine your claim reimbursement. So if you have bereavement time, you can change your column to include that. But you don't want to put an explanation for your time in the column, because it won't show up correctly. It only shows one leave hour instead of the 2. And it does not carry down So that's the importance of not having any letters in these columns. Any questions? Okay, so we had a question earlier about transportation. Your transportation time would fall in the time that goes with the activity that you're traveling for. So if you're traveling to do a required activity, your travel time would be in the required column on your PAR. If you're doing prep time for a required activity, that prep time would also go with the activity. So if you're doing a required activity and prepping for that, the time for that prep would go under the required column as well. If you do any athletic coaching, that would be something that you would track under the other column. Even though it may be that the school pays you for that time, it's not considered a contract activity, and IVRS would not pay you for that time. So we would not reimburse or include that in the claim amount. For your claim for that month or that pay period. There may be times that you're teaching or filling in, subbing. That may also be something that falls under the other column. So we want to know if you're doing those other activities or non-contract activities with your school so that we're aware of those situations. Okay, so we're going to have a little quiz. Who fills out a PAR? Does anybody know? Nobody wants to get it paid, so nobody's going to fill one out. Somebody's got their hand in there. You might have to unmute.
I just did. Everybody
Okay.
who does any work on the contract is going to do a PAR.
Good job. And where do you send your PAR?
We send it to the chief financial officer of our school in our case.
Okay, good job. And why do you fill out a PAR? Because we want to know what you're working on. So we need to monitor and report to our federal entities what types of things you guys are helping us out with. Anybody have any questions? Okay. If nobody has any questions, we're done with our meeting. I will send out information regarding the recording as soon as it's available, along with these documents again, just in case you haven't received them.
So did you send out new PARs and I just missed it?
Yes.
Okay.
We use the ones that were attached to the invite for this, correct?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
And you will want to make sure that you download it and not use it through Google. Google
Okay.
doesn't handle Excel very well, so you'll want to download it so that you actually go into it from Excel.
Okay. I have a question for like training. So with Project Search, when we have to do the trainings that are required by the hospital, would that fall under the other than? And
You're currently 100%, correct?
no, 50.
So you work part-time on,
Oh, no, I'm 100%, sorry.
okay. You're 100%. So that would still fall under the first 4 columns,
Okay,
and it would be non-pre-eds, since
Okay.
it's kind of a general employee type meeting.
right,
Whereas like today's meeting will fall under authorized. So your time today for this meeting will fall under authorized on your
Okay.
PAR, because it's related to the contract.
okay,
So depending on the type of training will depend on where it falls.
okay,
But
right.
since you're 100%, it'll always fall within those 4 first columns.
Okay, so then what about like our skills trainers that work with Project Search, but through Inclusion Connection, and they're doing, like, we have a new skills trainer coming on, and she needs to go through 2 days of the hospital training, like their orientation.
Yep, that would still be the non-pre-eds.
Okay, just making sure I had that 100% clear. So, okay.
Any other questions? All right, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.